Hi, and welcome to the New World Lead. My name is Sophie. I'm a coach, concept creator, and facilitator. And in this New World Lead Conversations series, I ask people from all around the world, how do we create the world we would love to live in? And today, I have the honor of talking to Guðni Gunnarsson, who is a pioneer within the field of well-being from Iceland. Enjoy. Welcome, Guðni Gunnarsson, to the New World Lead. You are a wellness pioneer. You're from Iceland. You've created a big impact in Iceland as well as in the United States with your concept GlóMotion, which is physical training combined with the philosophical awareness and awakening.
Thank you for having me.
I'm intrigued about your. I mean, you have more than 35 years of experience within the field of wellness and holistic living, and you've written a few books about presence and awakening in Icelandic, and you have also written the book Presence is Power, which was out in 2014 in English. And I would love for you to explain to all the viewers how do we actually create the world we love to live in?
Very small questions.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure and an honor. There is no separation. There's just energy. And when we see something that we refer to as substantial or physical or elementary, we don't understand sometimes that it's only presence or spirit or awareness on a different frequency. So when you talked about presence is power and you talked about GlóMotion and the physical aspect of training, the only training that I actually perform is what we call awareness training. And so whether it includes the body or not is sometimes beside the point. But the point is that your expression is a holistic expression. And so how you feel about yourself is going to determine what you transmit, how you glow, or whether you're passive. You know, numbness, we talked about numbness. How we pacify the expression of the glow is how we pacify the gift of awareness, which is your love and the love you have the potential of radiating if you are loving in your own life versus defiant and resistant and angry at yourself. So in other words, there's only light. There is no darkness. The darkness is applied through our resistance. So all of the systems that I've cultivated and work with are based on integrity. And integrity means wholeness. It means unification. It means yoga. So it also means living from the heart, which is singular as an entity, not dualistic as the mind. So I trust that wasn't a complicated explanation, but the approach is to be present, is to be powerful. And the only way for you to be or sustain presence is integrity.
Yes, what you are saying is that what we are witnessing in the world is actually a projection of what is going on inside of us.
Potentially, most of the time, yes. However, when you're present, there's no projection, there's just a witnessing, there's an awareness. And so when you are present, you see things as they reveal themselves. If you're not present, you're only experiencing your own projection. So that's the difference. When we have awakened, become responsible, cultivated purpose, committed completely to the process, and then we proceed, because knowing that what we are expressing is our own perspective towards ourselves. And once we understand that, then our insight creates the ability for us to be a witness to the process instead of a perpetrator or a judge or a jury or an executioner towards our own experience. Because the only thing we do experience is your own expression. And that becomes the reflection. When we, for instance, if we simplify this, if I speak poorly of another, I may leverage the name, but I can only speak poorly of myself.
Yes. So there are many levels in this personal transformational journey. I truly honor and respect the work you have done, your life's legacy with GlóMotion and the 7-step the 7 steps of prosperity, I think you call them, and how you are explaining the paradigm of scarcity and the paradigm of abundance and the difference, and how we can transform holistically from living in the illusion to becoming fully present with these 7 steps. And as I see it, one thing is the personal journey as we are creating this life and this body and expression and vessel, so to speak, as one of light and love, and purifying on our journey. Another level is witnessing like the whole world, the bigger scale, like witnessing what's happening with we talked about global warming, for instance, and I could also say, how do we react to suddenly experiencing that actually there is a big industry in the world of people trafficking and harming children, for instance. I just saw a movie called The Sound of Freedom, which was released in July, the 4th of July, and it was devastating to be a witness to something like that. Then we have war, we have corruption and the evil playing out. How do we respond from an enlightened, awakened place of love, and from our heart to those kind of things?
Powerful question. And the only answer that I can give is that we can change ourselves, and we can cultivate, we can mature, we can decide to become responsible for our own personal projection. When we talk about global warming and when we talk about the state of the mother, which is the planet, the Earth, then we somehow seem to be missing the point that it's not global warming or the wars that are causing havoc. It's the personal fear. Today, the populations are living in constant fear. We call it anxiety, we call it depression, we call it a lot of different things, but most of us have moved out of our hearts and into our heads, and we wreak havoc in our own lives. So most people, not everyone, lives with a harsh hand towards oneself. A lot of blame, a lot of shame, a lot of negativity, but mostly fear. And the biggest cause of fear is lack of energy. Not that the energy isn't there, but we don't have access to it because most of the energy today is devoted to fear, devoted to doubt, devoted to negativity. So there is no darkness in essence. There's only light, and then there's the defiance, the resistance of that light. For instance, you and I can glow, but we can only sustain that glow with love and compassion and kindness. The moment we reject ourselves, abandon ourselves, and then resist our own expression, we experience that fear. And most of us are devoting most of the energy to that defiance, and we are exhausted. The more exhausted we become, the more fear-based we become. And my contention is that that's the state of the planet right now. Fear is a dominant force, and everything is governed by fear. Everything we do, the language we speak, and the awareness that we bring to occasions, we keep pointing our awareness to the negative aspects of life instead of the positive. And if all that you devote your awareness grows and expands is true, then we know that that is not the way to go, although that's where we are. The moment we start devoting the energy to love and compassion and kindness, then things will change and transform. The question is, how much pain and discomfort do we need or do we want to attract into our lives, to the planet, before we understand that humans have the power to alter the state of the planet with compassion and kindness?
Yeah, I think depending on the degree of the abandonment wound that a person has experienced in life, or the I guess abandonment is really a big issue right now, also coming to the surface of people's awareness. Not just how we are abandoning others, but how we are essentially abandoning ourselves.
Well, I don't want to make light of the emotional pain that people are experiencing. But sometimes I say, and it's not well perceived, that domestic violence begins in your own head towards yourself. And so when we talk about abandonment issues, we are living in the expression of the sins of our fathers, in essence. So it doesn't mean negative or positive, but we are adopting the story, the history. And so the planet has been obviously developing and transforming for millennia. We have no idea for how long we have existed as a human race. We just think we do. So all of the stories that have been told, all of the suffering that has been experienced, all of this is in the field of experience for all of us. However, no one can abandon us except ourselves. We are not abandoned by others. And because we have abandoned ourselves, we become addicted to the notion or the feeling or the construct of being abandoned. And we use that as an excuse not to participate, because if somebody doesn't like us, acknowledge us, they've abandoned us, and we have the right to feel discarded. And it's an illusion. Yeah. It's an illusion. I saw a video online, and because I work with people, and most people, obviously, they want to move past their resistance and their defiances. So you don't focus a lot of attention on the pain in the past, you move towards the future and what you want to express or attract into your life, and you change your perspective, and then you change your pathways. In this particular video, there was a glass. The glass had pure water, and then somebody took a bit of mud and put into the water, and then 3 or 4 or 5 spoons later, the water was completely muddy. And then the person said, well, let's see if we can clean up the mud and the debris. Took the same spoon and started to pick up some of the mud that they had put into the glass. And it didn't work. It didn't work. None of the water became any cleaner until that same instructor got a big pitcher of water and then poured the water into the glass. And so the more fresh water came into the glass, the cleaner the glass became, and gradually all of the debris flowed over and the water was clean. The point is, do we keep looking for reasons for our demise in the past, or do we pour new, fresh perspectives and waters and love into the glass? Do we fill ourselves with light, or do we keep swimming in the dark?
Oh, this is very powerful, Guðni. Do we fill ourselves with the light, or do we keep swimming in the dark?
The interesting aspect of personal transformation is responsibility, the ability to respond. And I want to give another example. In the process of working with people, then we constantly hear that there are 3 basic reactions that people resort to when they are stuck in the past. And we call it fight, fear, or freeze.
Yeah.
And I think I may have somehow
fight or flight.
Fight, flight, or freeze. That's right. But no one ever speaks of love. So love is the point where you respond versus react.
You open your arms.
Yes.
Yes.
And so, and this is not dismissing the feelings, not dismissing what we call trauma or the experiences that we have attached to and have become addicted to, not dismissing any of the pain. I'm just saying that love is like water. And if you keep bringing awareness to the pain, to the discomfort, to the fear, that is what grows and expands. So if we talk about fight, flight, freeze, and love, all of a sudden we have an incredible balance of potential. And the reason I mentioned that is that the first step in this approach is awakening, awareness, to awaken to the fact that we are not our thoughts. We're not our trauma. We're not our body. We are not our experiences. Thoughts are interesting because they are images, and they have no meaning unless you devote meaning or attention to them. So whatever comes up in my mind has no significance until I assign meaning to it. So awakening means that you awaken to the fact that you are spirit, your essence, your soul, your light. You are not the construct, the body, the mind, or the emotions. None of that. Although there are consequences to the way we think. We know that. What we devote the awareness to and the construct of thoughts. So this is the first step, awakening to the point that you are essence. However, that cannot be sustained unless you rebirth your construct, meaning that you become absolutely responsible for your life, for your breath, for your moment, for your journey. And responsibility means the ability to respond. That's all it means. It doesn't mean burdening yourself, doesn't mean it's your fault. It means being responsible, means being present, sustaining that presence. And the only way to obtain that power is through self-forgiveness. Now, we do not have the power to forgive others, but we do have the power to relinquish ourselves from the agony we construct through our thoughts, forgive ourselves, release ourselves from the illusion that causes the pain and the resistance, the defiance, and the lack that we experience. No one is making ourselves disempowered except we.
It's very interesting. I actually my response, going back to the example of the movie The Sound of Freedom that came out here in the beginning of July of this year, 2023. My response witnessing this movie was actually an old Hawaiian healing technique called Ho'oponopono, which is actually taking responsibility for everything you witness, and then asking for forgiveness, asking for clearance, for clearing, and for making it undone. And I was continuously doing this healing mantra process, watching this movie, and still it was like, this is such a big issue that I was like overwhelmed. And I was in a process thinking, okay, so how much responsibility are we to assume as I mean, like, there is, I think I'm in the process of trying to figure out, I know that I'm a collective consciousness, and I'm not just this individual in this suit of meat. And still, I also sometimes feel that it's a little much to take on the responsibility of everything.
Well, responsibility is only referring to your perspective, your breath, your engagement, and your investment, how you devote your awareness. Mm-hmm. For instance, if you judge the world, you have become a judge.
Yeah.
So when we assume that we understand the plight of these people, we don't. Yeah. But what we can be responsible for is whether we shine love upon that pain or whether we follow that pain into self-pity. So because you mentioned Ho'oponopono, I love that concept, but let me present you with another possibility. So Ho'oponopono says, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Whom are we talking to? Whom are we talking with? And I completely understand, and I used that for years. I even speak of it in my books. But today, I don't say that. I only say, I am love. I am forgiven. Thank you. There's no reason for me to tell myself that I'm sorry. There is no reason for me to tell myself or request that I am forgiven by a higher power or by someone else, because the only person that can relieve me of my illusion is myself. So as much as I respect and support Ho'oponopono, I think if we want clarity and we want to be completely responsible, then I am love. I am forgiven. Thank you for this breath, this moment, for revealing this pain or this discomfort or this fear to me. So
what I realized was that people being able to harm other people in this way, and even children in this way, would have to have no access whatsoever to their heart, no access to the energy of love, no access at all to the experience of being a soul, of being responsible, of being, I mean, like they must be so limited in their experience of who they are, you know. I mean, like they cannot, there cannot be anything inside of the suit of meat, so to speak, if you are to be able to do harm in that way to others. And then I got on thinking, how is that even possible to exist on this plane without having any access to yourself?
Well, we can assume all of these things, but these people come from living conditions that we have not experienced.
That's right.
And the perpetrators and the victims are coexisting in that sphere of fear. So we are assuming and drawing conclusions about things that we have no access to experience-wise. I am not justifying any of the horrors, but what I'm saying is that we as a collective sustain the fear.
Yeah.
So, and the deprivation and the scarcity. Think about the world right now, for instance, all of the people that have been literally expelled from their countries, the religions that we have fighting over ideology, and none of that. Think about if we take the dialogue to Iran, where females are being abused and even killed because they have a view. So we can do all these things, but the question is it beneficial? Is it beneficial for us to keep drawing awareness to the negative aspects of expression? Or is it possible that we meditate, we sustain, we become liberated in our own process? So most of us are having a hard time running our own lives, let alone running the world.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and the logical conclusion about the insight that the world is a reflection of us, and what's going on inside of us is to say, okay, so my responsibility is actually just to take full responsibility of my focus and go home.
Yes.
Change my self-image, as you write in your book, changing the self-image, not just in the head, but in the heart.
Yes.
Is making the whole difference.
Yes.
In order for you to start actually being the world you love to live in.
Every time we glow, enjoy, radiate, the overall vibration frequency of the planet is heightened. Every time you go into fear and defiance and judgment, you are diminishing your glow and therefore diminishing the planet and therefore sustaining the fear. The fear is the dominant force. And if we are to have any chance of changing the planet or affecting the changes of the planet, then the only thing that we want to be responsible for is our own projection. Are you projecting light? Are you glowing? Or are you dimming your own expression? Are you moving into the fear and then subscribing to fear and lack and scarcity? Or are you subscribing to light and abundance and care and compassion?
Yeah. Somewhere in your book or in the presentation of you, I read that you had this personal experience. I mean, like everything you have developed is on the basis of your own personal journey. And you yeah, I think it was something about how all of us want to, obviously all of us want to be happy, create a prosperous life, live in the now, in the present, and create all, make all our dreams come true. However, most of us don't know that we are habitually absent, and actually don't like ourselves very much, and fall into all kinds of behavior designed to numb us, take us out of, take us out of this absent-minded state, or trying to get out of pain instead of like facing everything and actually creating a change that is like really in integrity and true. And I wanted to, please explain, Elaine, a little bit more about your own journey and how you actually caught yourself in patterns and changed.
Well, I come from a tumultuous background. And so when I began my journey as an individual, I wanted to excel, I wanted to succeed. And most of all, I wanted to be better than my parents. And I used my fear, my anger, subtle anger, but fear, to propel myself. And I was able to attract, and I was a hard worker, and I had a lot of ideas, but it didn't matter what I attracted or what I created. I couldn't really experience it and enjoy it because I never felt good enough. So when I walk into the world thinking that I have to be better than somebody, I'm actually saying that I'm not good enough. So I use I'm not good enough to motivate my process. And because I used it, it always came back to me as insufficiency. When? Or it's interesting, I have this story, and it's an interesting story because I was divorced by the time I was 34 years old. And I would never have believed that. My ex-wife and I were a good match, and then we somehow grew apart. And I lost myself in my process. So I decided to leave her. But in order to be able to do that, I convinced myself that I wasn't good enough. She'd be better off with someone else. I didn't ask her.
Because I recognize something in your story.
Didn't ask her. I just assumed and used that as the primary motivator for my changes. I had sort of lost my mojo, and I was lost in my life. And I wasn't blaming her. I was just thinking that I needed to break away from that relationship. And I don't look back with regret. This was the time we were meant to stay together. However, when I met another woman of significance, the voice came up. She would probably be better off without you. So the program was installed in my existence. And because I was aware enough to recognize and understand what I was doing, I was able to diffuse it. But this is what happens to us. We have all these programs that run our lives. If you're not conscious, you can be completely unable to run your life with any meaning. Doesn't mean you don't wake up in the morning and go to work and repeat the same process over and over again, thinking that you want something different. But how can you want something different if you don't change your actions or your perspective towards yourself? And the answer is, it doesn't work. One of my sayings is, to will is to act. And if you don't take action, if you're not doing something, you actually are not willing anything, and therefore you're not wanting it. So when we say, I want to, I long for, I hope, I desire, none of that is action-based. Those are all just sort of hypotheticals, because if you don't wake up and execute your dreams, they will turn into nightmares. So if we're not taking action, we don't want the changes. And this is where being addicted to the illusion, the absence, becomes so prevalent. It's like the only way for us to change anything is to come into responsibility. And responsibility means having the integrity to realize that you have created this moment. Wherever you came from, wherever you wanted, whatever the reasons were, you created this moment. I'm sitting in this chair because I decided to, consciously or unconsciously.
But how, Guðni, realizing that you actually were running on the program, I'm not good enough?
Mm-hmm.
I think most of humanity is unconsciously, which is the reason behind the state of the world. Realizing you were running on this program, albeit unconsciously, but still it was running, and then it came up like a flash of insight. How did you change that? How did you
I had become aware earlier in my life, but then I had abandoned myself again. So I had the knowledge, but not the wisdom. So I didn't have the permission to sustain wellness. I had to awaken again and again to realize the illusion, so I could finally move into some form of integrity.
So what you say is that when you the way you actually have changed is becoming aware of the program, I'm not good enough, and then starting, I mean, like then obviously realizing it and forgiving yourself as part of, as you have these 7 steps, and part of it is the forgiveness, obviously, and then starting to take action that is not confirming that old program, but confirming the opposite, and then like opening your heart to yourself and start actually loving yourself.
Yes, and again, I mentioned we do this again and again until we actually get it, and you awaken, and then you fall asleep again. So when I was young, I realized that I wasn't the voice in my head, but in my pursuit of my success and my family and whatever I wanted to accomplish, I was able to abandon that and suppress that knowledge to be able to allow myself to proceed in the dark.
I really recognize that story. Yes.
It's interesting. I'll give you an example, because when I was very young, I can't remember exactly what age, I recognized the voice, and the voice was discriminating, negative. And so I decided to put a face on the voice, and it was a little devil. And the devil had a tail and horns and a little fork and sort of a mischievous smile. And it was on the right side of my body. And so when that voice came up, I would imagine this little devil sort of telling me what to do or what not to do and who I was and what I wasn't. So I thought to myself, okay, I recognize the voice, but that's not the only voice in my head. There's another voice in my head, which is beautiful, clarity, understanding, compassion. So I drew another image, and that was a little angel with the wings and the halo and everything, and with a genuine smile, not with the murk.
Yeah.
And so when the little devil spoke up and told me to do something negative, the angel would come up with a genuine smile, but go. So I just played with these things.
And it's so funny. It reminds me of a cartoon I read as a child. I remember it so clearly, Donald Duck having this conversation with the devil on the one side and the angel on the other, and then debating what should we do here. And then it just dawns on me, it makes so much sense, like the left side of our body metaphysically is the heart side, and having the
female aspect,
the angel there, and then we have the little devil, and then just I mean, like just loving them and then letting them have the discussion, but then always knowing what is in integrity here.
So where is the dialogue? Where am I watching from? And the female aspect is the subconscious, and that's the womb, that's the creative mother. And the masculinity is the right side of our body. But the interesting process is that until we're willing to face it, observe what we're doing and become responsible for the expression, all of it is cultivated. And if we're not getting the results from our lives that we think we want, and notice I said that we think we want.
That's a very good distinction.
Because all of us have exactly what we intended, consciously or unconsciously. All of that can be changed the moment you're willing to become responsible for that. But you cannot be responsible unless you forgive yourself and release yourself from the illusion that things should be any different. Everything is complete now. There's nothing wrong, nothing right, never has been. There's just now. There's no future, there's no past. There's just now.
And on this note, I want to thank you so much for taking the time for this conversation with me. There's so much profound wisdom streaming from all of your years of experience and your honesty and integrity on this journey. I highly recommend everyone to read your book. I will put a link to Amazon where it's possible to get hold of it. I mean, like the bulk of your work is in Icelandic still. You have a school in Iceland, and you have also written a couple of books in Icelandic, right? But you have this book, Power is Presence, in English, and you also do life coaching internationally, obviously online. So I will put a link to your international website, to the Amazon where you can get where anyone can get the book.
Actually, two books. And Presence is Power is the first book, and then there's Presence is Power, the 7-step workbook. The reason I'm mentioning that is that then one can go to a journey, and many times I work as with my life coaching clients inside the parameter of that book. So interesting to observe.
That makes sense, yes. So there's a book and there's a workbook.
Yes.
And then I will just say thank you so much for pioneering in this world and actually creating the world we love to live in all around you, Guðni. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, my honor. And we'll speak again.
We will.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.